it's Laura. Today I thought I would talk a little bit about ink blending. So I'm just going to go over the basics. I'm not actually going to make a project. Just kind of want to show you some of the tools and the basics of the technique so you can get some ideas and inspiration and take the technique and make it your own. So there are some basic tools when it comes to ink blending. Of course, you're going to need ink. What I have here is Tim Holtz Distress ink. You do not have to have this ink to do ink blending. You can use basically any type of dye ink. Some work better than others. I suggest experimenting with it and give it a try. I just have these on hand. These are the most common inks to use for ink blending, as well as the Distress ink oxides. But like I said, just about any dye ink will work. So I've got some inks kind of set aside here. I have just basic white cardstock. I think this is 110 pound. It's no particular brand. It's just what I had on hand. Definitely try this technique on different types of paper. This is just basic cardstock, which it will totally work on this. But there's awesome techniques that you can do with different types of papers. For example, using watercolor paper gives things a pretty cool textured effect. So try different things out. Definitely experiment. So I just have a few pieces here of cardstock. They're just an sheet of 8.5 by 11 cut into quarters. So nothing special here. Just have them on hand. One of the things you will probably need are some wipies. I have some just cheap wipies from, I think these are from Costco. It's my favorite brand. I just have them on hand. But they're always useful to have. Another essential is a scrap piece of paper. So I just have a sheet set aside. You can see I use it for just scraps, just to be able to be messy and not have to worry about it. So I do have this. I will bring it back out again in just a few minutes. And then there are your ink blending tools. The most common is this cool little thing here. This is from Tim Holtz as well, or Ranger. I think they originally started with the rectangle one. But the most common that I've seen used is the round one. So you can get these at any craft store or online. And these little foam pads to go with them. So it's foam on one side and then it's Velcro on the other. So that you can just pick it up, peel it off when you're done. So these are the most common. There's also the rectangle one with the foam. Just pick it up, peel it off when you're done. Another common way of ink blending is with a brush. They've now come out with a number of different types of brushes used specifically for blending. This is one of them. I can't remember for sure who these are by. I think they're by Tonic. I got a whole bunch of these so that I could have one for every color or, color shading family. And so this is a tool many people use. It's not my favorite, but it is usable. It does work. You can also use, this is a finger blender. You put it on your fingers so that you can blend small areas. You can use makeup sponges. Those work well as well. You can also use makeup brushes or big fluffy thick paintbrushes. This is just a paintbrush that I have. And out of all of these different ways or different tools to use for blending, I know that there's some others that are out on the market. I haven't tried them. I've tried all of these techniques. My favorite is either these right there like that, or just a big old fluffy brush. Makeup brushes, like the big blush brushes or foundation brushes, those ones I think work the best. I like these because with makeup brushes, you don't have a whole lot of the little hairs falling out all the time. This is just a paintbrush that came in one of those cheap packs of paintbrushes that you can get from like Hobby Lobby or Michael's, where you get like 10 different types of paintbrushes. And this is just a big fluffy one from one of those kits. I mean, they're like super cheap. You can get like a 5 or 10 brushes for like $5. Anyway, so that's what this is. This is actually one of my favorite for ink blending, or a makeup brush will work as well. Or these. So you can use any of these items. I suggest experimenting with all of them. Find the ones that you like. Some are better for certain techniques than others. So just try it out. See how you do. See what you like. So I'm going to set most of these aside, and I'm going to focus on just a couple of these. Mostly this big brush, these little pads, and this right here, this pad, the rectangular pad, and the round pad, they basically do the same thing. It's just, it's easier to go in a circular motion with a circular tool than it is with a rectangular tool. But I have found that this is great for when it comes to the technique of edging, which I will show you. So I'm going to set most of these aside because I'm not really going to go into them. Once you see how this works, you'll have a pretty good idea how this works. Once you see how this works, you'll have a pretty good idea of how this works. This would basically be the same thing as this, except for instead of having a fancy dancy little holdy-on-y tool, you would just use a makeup sponge like that. So same with your finger, the finger little thingy. This is not required. It is nice to have for small little areas, but for most ink blending scenarios, this might be a little too small and a little cumbersome. But these are all the tools. I'm going to set most of them aside and focus on mainly these ones and the brush. I'll also have this one set aside, but I might get back to using it. I also have a pair of scissors here just to show you a couple of different techniques. So I'm going to try to get through this. Like I said, I'm not going to actually make a project. I'm going to show you the techniques involved. Alright, so I'm just going to grab my handy dandy little scrap piece of paper here. I'm going to take one of my little, this is what I'm going to use as my pretend background or my pretend project. Alright, so with these handy dandy little foam tool things, what I like to do with inks that I know I like to blend with, I just keep a little foam for that particular color. So on the bottom of all of these, I have the little foams already set up. You do not need to do that. For some people, that might be a little bit excessive. I just like to have them on hand so that they're ready when I need them. But you don't have to do that. You could always just have a foam for each family of colors and not really worry about whether it's distress ink or a different brand of ink. Just if it's green, use it. So I'm going to start off using this tool, and I'm going to show you the difference between using this type of tool and using a brush so that you can see what the differences are. So I'm going to start off with a lighter color. I'm going to go with, this is fossilized amber. And I'm going to grab my little pad. You can see how loved it is. So the key with using this is that you want to stamp, or not stamp, but you want to press off onto something before you start blending. And then you use circular motions. That way, you get a smoother transition of the color instead of a blotch. So let me show you what a blotch would do. We'll do it right here. So a blotch, you're going to get that circle there, even though you're trying to spread it out. It is possible to kind of blend that out so it's not, you don't, I cannot talk, so that it's not so defined, but it takes a lot more work. So I find it much easier to ink it up, blotch it off, and then come in and start blending. Another tip is to start off of your page and come in. So that's how that's looking right there. I'm going to do the other side over here, the side I haven't done yet, with the brush so that you can see how that's working out. So I'm just going to take the brush, fill it with some ink, make sure that I have some there, and then I'm just going to start swiping away. Whoa! And I know it's hard to see right now, especially because this color is behind it, but there is ink getting on my paper here. And the reason why I like the brush is because you can get a much softer effect, and I kind of like how the colors kind of blend together when you do that. So it may seem like I might be using a little more ink, but I'm really not, because it's only just getting on the very tip of the bristles rather than the entire pad. Okay, so I'm going to lift this up so you can see the difference. So this is with the brush. You can see how it lightly fades. And then this is with the blending tool itself. It's much darker. So if you want a lighter effect, the brush is the way to go. If you want a darker effect, then the tool is the way to go. And you can darken this even more. The more layers you put on top, the darker it will be. So let's take this and let's add some more colors in there. So I'm going to close that up. I'm going to take my little pad off of here. Put it right back in there so I can keep that. With the brush, here's where a wipey is handy dandy. Just take it on your wipey and just start kind of brushing it off. It doesn't have to be 100% clean, but you do want a good portion of the ink off. And then just kind of wipe it off on something. Now you don't want your brush completely wet. You just want it to be enough to get the ink off, or a majority of the ink. Okay, so let's do maybe some pink. This is picked raspberry. I'm going to take my little tool, grab my little ink here. And this is the side that I used the blending tool on. I'm going to stamp off. I'm going to come in here, stamp off. Okay, so you should be able to see that pretty well. Put this up here. So you can see how it's kind of just blending in and blending into the yellow. Now, let's say I wanted the edges of this a little darker. That's simple to do. There we go. Put this sheet underneath it so you can see how it all kind of blends together. Alright, so let's do it with the brush and see how that turns out. Make sure I get some ink on there. Just kind of swirl it around a little bit. So you can see how that's kind of making a totally different effect there. And just kind of smoosh and swoosh around. a lighter effect. Got a little bit of the, not pattern, but texture there. That's because the bristles were still damp from the wipey. So if you like that effect, that's easy to do. Make sure your bristles are just slightly damp and you'll get that effect. If you don't like that effect, make sure the bristles are completely dry before you start. Do a little bit more. Just kind of want to blend it in a little bit more. And just kind of pounce it around. There we go. Okay. Let me clean this all off. So like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to get it all off, just a majority of it. Okay. Close that up. Take this off. And let's just do one more color real quick. How about this purple here? This is Wilted Violet. So I'm gonna grab this little guy. Open that up. Stomp off. Kind of bring that in. Kind of blend that in with the other colors. There you go. That's with the stamp tool. That's not what this is called. This is a blending tool. So that's how that turned out. Let's do it with the brush. Okay, and so you see you get a much lighter effect. Pretty cool, isn't it? Alright, so let's close this up. Put that on there. Get this kind of wiped off. Okay, there we go. Alright, so this could be used for a background on a card or for an element or all kinds of fun things. One of my favorite things to do is to take a stamp, any type of stamp, doesn't matter what kind of stamp, whatever type of project you are working on, especially if it's like a flower or an animal or a tree or, you know, something like that. This is just black Archival ink. I'm just gonna get it all over my fingers, of course. Doesn't that look cool? I love how that pops. I love how like a black silhouetted stamp looks on a blended background. It's one of my favorite techniques. Okay, so I thought I would just show that real quick. Let me wipe this off real quick. Okay, set that aside. So that is the basic starting point for blending. Now there are a number of other cool techniques that you can use blending for, and I'm going to show you a couple of them. I have a die cut here. It's just a label that I die cut from a die. This set is nesting labels that I that I purchased from AliExpress. It's just one of those. One of my favorite techniques to use on things like this is called edging. And so I'm going to take like this brown. It'll kind of give it a distressed kind of look. So I'm going to take this walnut stain here. You can see how well loved this pad is. I'm going to use my ink blending tool. I'm just going to kind of go around like this, around the edges. Make sure you start off of your project and kind of circle it onto it. You don't have to press super, super hard. Just enough to get a little bit of that color on there. Just kind of go around it. Kind of give it a little bit of a stained, distressed kind of look to it. And you just kind of keep going until you get it where you like it. Okay, so what I did is kind of gave it a distressed old kind of look. To add a little more pop to it, one of the things I like to do is go along the edges. And I'll do half of this so you can see what the difference is. And just kind of scrape it along that edge there. Scrape, scrape, scrape. Scrape, scrape, scrape. There, like that. There you go. This half has the edging done. This half does not. And the whole thing has it blended in all around it to kind of give it that aged look. So there's that technique. And then you can just, you know, stamp in a sentiment there or put a die cut there, or, you know, lots of things you can do with that. So there is that technique. Now that technique will not work with a brush. You need some sort of foam to do that. So whether it is a blending tool like this or like this, this actually works really well for the edging part, like that. Or even the makeup sponge. This one will work too. It'll be a little more difficult, but it will work. But a brush just isn't going to work. So there's that one. Set that aside. Hey, the next technique. Use a new sheet here. I am going to use, this is just a random scrap that I had. I'm going to show you how to set up a scene. So I'm going to do, I'll do it this way. I'm going to take a pair of scissors. If you have dies for this, dies will work great and probably be much faster, but you do not have to have dies. You can just use a pair of scissors. So what I want to do is I want to make a sky and a ground for a landscape scene. So I'm going to start with the ground. I'm going to start with, say, a hillside. So I'm just going to kind of cut like that. So I have two pieces now of a hillside and the leftover part. I'm going to take this part right here. So I know it's hard to see because this is still kind of white, but I'm going to put that there. I'm going to take this part and just a piece of washi tape. And although this is not the exact size of my card, that's okay. I'm going to roll with it. I'm just going to tape that down. So this is the top part. This is the part that will not be used. So this will be the hill. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little blendy tool And I'm going to take my lightest color green. Now this technique, you can use the brush, but I want you to be able to see it, and this tends to make it a little darker and more visible, so I'm going to use this, but a brush will work for this as well. So this color is crushed olive. Actually, that's pretty yellow. I don't really want that. Crushed olive is more of a yellowish, kind of greenish color. I want something a little bit darker than that. So we'll go with this one. This one's Mowed Lawn. So I'm going to get that full of ink, stamp off, and then I'm going to come in here. And I'm just going to go to town. And I'm going to go right along that cut edge right there. I'm going to get that filled in, and as filled in as I want it to be. Okay. And so if I were to lift this up, get that pretty little line there. I'm going to add one more color to it. Take this off. And go for this dark forest moss. Stamp off. And I just want certain areas here to be just a little bit darker. Have a little more I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for. It's just a multitude of colors in there instead of just a flat green, just to give it a little more dimension. Okay, good enough. Take that off, set that aside, there we go. Okay, now I'm going to take this off, and now I have this pretty little hillside here. Next, I want to make the sky, and I want it to have clouds. So I am going to do basically the same thing, but I'm going to make this like really wavy and bumpy. No rhyme or reason to it. So something along those lines. I'm going to keep this piece because I'm going to need it again. I'm going to keep this piece because I'm going to need it again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this to help me make clouds. First thing I'm going to start with though is I'm going to take this piece and put it over my hill here to kind of mask it off. I'm going to use a piece of tape, tape that bad boy down, there like that. And I'm going to take my lightest blue, which is tumbled glass. And it helps to get it on there even. Alright, and so I'm just going to go all over in certain areas. Just to kind of, well, down here anyway. Just going to kind of give it a little hue of that blue. Especially along the edge of this. So it's not a stark white. So just kind of go along there like that. And then what I'm going to do is this piece right here that I cut, I'm just going to kind of go like that and just go right along it. And I'm going to kind of turn it and adjust it. In fact, I may flip it over like that. Kind of move it over a little bit, maybe. over this way a little bit. That kind of moved on me a little bit, but that's okay. Maybe flip it over again. Ah, it's moving on me. Stop moving. Stay still. There we go. And maybe, stop moving. It's a moving on me. So tape it down if you have to. Oops. See, I got that line there. That's okay though. We can fix that. It's moving on me again. There we go. So you can do mountains, you can do clouds. What you can do is you can take this other side here and take a different blue. Let's go for some, no, that's too turquoise. Let's go for this color here. This is Faded Jeans. I took the opposite side now, and I'm just going to play with it. Just kind of go for it. No rhyme or reason, just go. Doesn't have to be perfect. No matter what you do, it'll still look cool. So also, it'd be awesome for like waves. So if you're doing a water scene. Okay, see how I got that kind of like smudged there? You can blend that out a bit. But it will always be darker in that little spot there. Anyway, you get the idea. You can make camouflage, you can make clouds, you can make all kinds of different things. You can add in like pinks and purples, make it like a kind of sunset sort of thing. Lots of different things. So I'm going to set those aside. Set this aside. So now I have my little scene set up. So I could take little die cuts or stamped images or various things like that and make a little scene. These are die cuts that I received in a swap from a lovely lady named Rena. Love her little die cuts. So see, you could do something like that. Create a little scene. Put a little sentiment up here. Make a little card. You could do this on scrapbook page. There's lots of different things you could use this for. So that's another way of using those. You can also do something like this. I'm going to take another sheet here. Oh, let me bring this up closer so you can see it. There you go. So here's another clean sheet right here. This is a scrap from, I had done a die cut for something else. This was a seahorse from, I got this from AliExpress as well. So I had done a little green seahorse for something else. This is a scrap left over. So what I can do is I can take it and let's say I'm making a card with a sea theme to it. So I can take it and take some washi tape. So, good way to use your scraps. With the negative that's left over, just kind of tape this down so it doesn't move on me like the other ones were. Put that down. I'm going to tape the whole backing down too so that doesn't move as much either. Get that untangled. There we go. Okay, so I have my card base taped down, and I have my little scrap taped down to the card base. So I think I'm going to use the brush for this, so you can see how light it'll be. And let's see, what colors do I want to use? I'll use the purple and the pink and maybe what color? I guess the turquoise. Okay, so I'm going to start with my lightest color, which is my pink. And I'm just going to swirl and swish and swirl and swish. Now you got to be careful of things like this that will lift. And just kind of swirl and swish until you get it about the darkness that you want. I'm going to clean this off. There we go. The majority of it off. Move on to my next color. I think it's going to be the purple. So you want to be careful not to lift it and get underneath it, like I accidentally did there. Maybe a little bit more right there. Kind of blend that into the pink a little bit. There we go. Wipe this all off. Close that up, and let's go for my third color. Right here like this. Now with this little curl, I want to be careful of it because it will lift. So I'm kind of pouncing down instead of swirling. Alright, there we go. Clean this off. Go. Throw things around. That's how we do it in the craft room. Alright, so I'm going to take the washi tape off. And there you have it. Got a little bit over there, so you kind of need to be careful of that. But you can see, you can get a pretty little design there. Do a sentiment or little stars or something around it, or little seashells, or lots of things you can do with this. I accidentally got that over there, so just be careful of that. And you can kind of see right here where the bristles of the brush kind of got underneath. So just beware of that to make sure that you're not pushing the bristles underneath it. But pretty cute, wouldn't you say? I need a black pen because this little guy needs an eye. There we go. Okay. So there's another one. And then the last thing that I'm going to show you is, take my little card here, and I'm going to tape this down on here, and I want just the edge of it to be taped down, and I only want it just so that it doesn't move. But if you're going to be taping for this particular part, if you're going to be taping it down, you want to make sure that your card area is, okay, the paper, the cardstock is bigger than the actual product project that you want. So if you want this to be card sized exactly, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, then the card itself needs to be bigger so that you have an area that you can tape off. And then you would need to cut it down afterwards when you're done. There's that. And here's that. And what I am going to do is I'm going to take another piece here and I'm going to kind of tape this off across the middle here, like that, because I'm going to do one side with a blending tool, one side with a brush, so that you can see what the differences are. But I just want this little piece of paper to sit still. And then I am going to take a stencil. And then I'm going to tape the stencil down so that the stencil doesn't move around. So I'm going to line it up how I want it. And I'm going to tape this bad boy down. Okay. And let's see, what color should I use? I think I'm going to go for fossilized amber and picked raspberry and let's go for the salty ocean, the more turquoisey one. Okay, so I'm going to start with the lightest, and we'll do the top will be the brush, the bottom will be the blending tool. I'm just going to come in here and hold it down. You don't want it lifting too much. I'm just going to come in here and just kind of blend away. Like that. Take this off. And now let's use the brush. I should have gotten more of these big circles in the top area. Oh well, that's okay. And we'll go ahead and use the brush. And just kind of pounce a bit. And it's okay to not fill an entire area, because the whole idea is to blend. So it doesn't have to be completely full. Alright, so there's the yellow. Clean my brush off. Get a majority of the ink off of it so that it's not creating a funky color. Alright. The pink. Go. Let's get the brush. And just kind of pounce it. So with this tool, you kind of want to circle around and around in a circle. With the brush, you kind of want to pounce and circle, but more pouncing than anything. Okay, clean this off. There we go. Top on there, put that back on here. Alright, last color. Oh, helps if I get the little pad out from the bottom first. There we go. Okay. Take that off. Let's go for the brush. And bounce and bounce and bounce and bounce and bounce. Bounce and bounce and bounce and bounce and bounce. Bounce and bounce and bounce. And I know you like my singing. Okay. Clean this off. Should have done a little more pink there. I think I might go back in there with some more pink, but I'll let it be for now. You'll be able to see the difference. Wipe my brush off. There we go. Top on. A little doohickey back in there. Alright, let's lift this up so that we can see. Take that off. Take that off. Good thing this is just scrap paper. Alright, and then carefully lift it off of the actual project. Which, beware of the washi tape that you use. Just as a heads up. So, good thing I'm not actually using this project, but definitely do that. Definitely test out your washi tape on your on the type of paper you're using before using it on your project. Alright, so here's how that turned out. This is with the blending tool, this is with a brush. And of course this has bigger circles so you can see it better. So, but both work great. And they kind of give you a different aesthetic. So this is much lighter and this is much bolder. So there you have it. That is the basics to ink blending. There are a lot of other techniques out there. I highly recommend watching YouTube videos and checking things out on Pinterest. People have come up with some really stellar, awesome ideas that I am just in awe of their creativity. So definitely go and find out, you know, different inspirations for your crafting projects. But I thought I would just share the basics of this technique with you. So, if you use this technique to create something, please share it with me. I would love to see what you guys come up with. You can leave comments in the, or you can leave messages for me, or comments, in the comments below. If you like the video, hit like, subscribe, leave me comments, come check out the web page, the Facebook page. I would love to hear from you. Thanks so much. Bye.